Welcome back, America, to Sound Retirement Radio, where we bring you concepts, ideas, and strategies designed to help you achieve clarity, confidence, and freedom as you prepare for and transition through retirement. And now, here is your host, Jason Parker.
America, so glad you're tuning into episode number 430. The title is Mastering HSAs, Tips for 2024 and Beyond. But before we get started, I always like to start the day by renewing our mind, and I've got a verse here for us from 1 Peter 4:10. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And then something fun for the grandkids. I asked Grandpa why he didn't have life insurance, and he said, because I want you to be truly sad when I'm gone. Which month of the year is the shortest? May. It only has 3 letters. All right, well, let's get into this episode. Today, we're going to be talking about health savings accounts, and they are one of the most incredible tools for retirement savings. Unfortunately, too many people I meet are missing out on using HSAs as part of their retirement strategy, and so we're going to do a deep dive into HSAs. As we dive into this topic of health savings accounts, I want to share at a high level and then dive into more of the specifics and some of the strategies for you to consider. I've compiled a bunch of resources and links to other articles that you're going to find very helpful in the show notes. Just visit soundretirementplanning.com and click on episode number 430. Health savings accounts have only been around since 2003, but according to a report by kff.org, enrollment in high-deductible health plans with a savings option has increased from 20% in 2013 to 29% in 2023. And of those, about 24% are enrolled in HSAs. When comparing HSAs to other types of retirement accounts, I found that 40% of U.S. households own an IRA and about 70% of households have retirement plans through work. And I would really like to see an increase in HSA enrollment numbers. What is an HSA? An HSA is a special account where you can save money for medical expenses without paying taxes on it. To have one, you need to meet certain eligibility criteria. How do you qualify for a health savings account in 2024? You are covered under a high-deductible health plan. You have no other health coverage. And there are some nuances here that can get pretty complex. So I'll refer you back to the IRS publication 969 if you have questions. Generally, you can't have any other health coverage. You aren't enrolled in Medicare, and you can't be claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. What are the benefits of an HSA? You can claim a tax deduction for contributions you or someone other than your employer make to your HSA, even if you don't itemize your deductions on Schedule A. Contributions to your HSA made by your employer, including contributions made through a cafeteria plan, may be excluded from your gross income. The contributions remain in your account until you use them. The interest or other earnings on the assets in the account are tax deferred. Distributions may be tax-free if you pay qualified medical expenses. An HSA is portable. It stays with you even if you change employers or leave the workforce. And if used for qualified medical expenses, the money comes out tax-free. And unlike an IRA, you don't have to wait until age 59 and a half to start using the money penalty-free. As long as the money is used for qualified medical expenses, you can access the account with no penalties or taxes. So in essence, you get the benefits and the tax deduction from an IRA and the tax-free income like a Roth IRA. It combines the best of both worlds. Tax deductions, number one. Number two, tax-free income when taking money out for qualified medical expenses. Number three, it's more liquid than an IRA because you don't have to wait till age 59 and a half to access the money without a penalty. Number four, unlike an IRA, there's no required minimum distributions, so you're not going to be forced to take withdrawals at age 73. Number five, money in an HSA is carried over to future years. And number six, if the HSA is being offered through your employer, it's a portable benefit, meaning that you can take the HSA with you if you leave your job. And that makes the HSA unique compared to other types of healthcare savings accounts such as FSAs or HRAs. Please note that the HSA is different and, in my opinion, better than the FSA or the HRA that many people have through their employer. But because these are other types of accounts, it can be confusing. So HRA stands for Health Reimbursement Arrangement, FSA stands for Flexible Spending Account, and HSA stands for Health Savings Account. So why would you want an HSA? And there are several reasons. Number one, Fidelity's recent retiree healthcare cost estimate states that on average, a 65-year-old couple will spend about $315,000 on healthcare costs in retirement, not including costs for long-term care. So we need to plan on how we're going to pay for those healthcare costs in retirement. If we only have money saved in our IRA or 401k accounts, then we're going to have to pay taxes on every dollar we pull out, even if those dollars are for health-related expenses. Number two, health insurance is expensive. And I don't know about you, but I get zero joy from spending money on health insurance. But it does provide me some peace of mind. If you're healthy and you don't spend a lot of money on health care and medical costs every year, a high deductible health plan helps you keep your insurance premium expenses low. With insurance, I want as much as I need, but not a penny more. The HSA is an account that can be invested for long-term growth, but not all HSA providers have investment options. And then number four, because dollars contributed to an HSA offer a tax deduction, it helps you pay less money in taxes every year. Unlike Roth IRA contributions, high-income individuals don't get phased out of these contributions. So a question would be, if these HSA accounts are so good, why are such a small percentage of Americans using them? Well, with this podcast, I hope to change that. I hope the high deductible health plan and the HSA becomes one of the most utilized retirement accounts. So be sure to share this episode with your friends and the people that you care about so that you can help them pay less money in taxes, pay less money for health insurance, and build up a pot of money that they can use for medical expenses and take money out tax-free when needed to cover qualified medical expenses. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is choose health insurance. And there's a lot that needs to be considered with which health insurance plan you're going to choose. If you know that you're going to be going into a season of life where you're planning on higher medical expenses, such as maybe you're planning to start a family or you're planning for some type of surgery, then it might make more sense to choose a low deductible health insurance plan. But if you're going to choose a high deductible health insurance plan, you need to know what the requirements are for the high deductible health plan to qualify as HSA eligible. Number one, a high deductible health plan in 2024 requires a minimum deductible of $1,600 for self-only coverage and a maximum out-of-pocket of $8,050. Family coverage needs a minimum annual deductible of $3,200 with a maximum out-of-pocket of $16,100. You cannot be enrolled in any other health insurance. You cannot be enrolled in Medicare, and you cannot be claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. The next thing you're going to want to do is compare plans. I recently visited the Washington State Health Plan Finder website to compare plans. I looked at a few offerings in my state and my county, and I assumed a married couple, both age 40, with a low deductible plan versus a high deductible health plan that was HSA qualified. And here's what I found when comparing these plans. If I purchased a health insurance plan from Regence with a low deductible of $600 per individual or $1,200 per family, the estimated monthly premium was $1,424.74 per month. An HDHP health insurance plan from Primera had a $6,400 individual deductible and a $12,800 family deductible, and the premiums were $1,148.40 per month. As you can see, the high deductible health plan in this particular example would save $276.34 per month in health insurance premiums. But in the event that a major medical event happened for an individual, the deductible is $6,400 with a max out-of-pocket of $7,200. Whereas a lower deductible plan would have a deductible of only $600 for an individual with a max out-of-pocket of $6,100. The premium savings of the high deductible health plan is $3,316 per year. So assuming you don't have any major medical issues, you can save the difference in premiums and enjoy the tax breaks for making a contribution to an HSA and also enjoy tax-free growth of your HSA account. The monthly cost savings was $276 per month for the high deductible health plan compared to the low deductible plan. If you choose the high deductible health plan with the HSA in this scenario, you have now freed up over $3,000 per year that you would have otherwise been sending to the insurance company every year had you selected the lower deductible plan. Because you have a qualified high deductible health plan that is HSA friendly, you are now eligible to contribute to an HSA. And in the year 2024, the HSA says that you can contribute up to $4,150 for an individual or $8,300 per year for a family. If you're over the age of 55, there's a $1,000 catch-up contribution. And one of the great things about the HSA is, unlike other types of tax advantage savings, there's no restrictions or limitations on earnings. So now that we can see that we can save money on health insurance premiums, let's consider the tax benefits of signing up for a health savings account. Our national debt is currently over $34 trillion. We're creating and spending money like there's no tomorrow, and we currently have all-time low tax rates. Will they be going lower? Or is it possible that taxes will be increasing in the future? We're going to look at how a contribution to an HSA would work today if you set up an HSA, and if you believe taxes could be going higher in the future, then it could make the tax-deferred growth and the tax-free benefits of the HSA that much more valuable in a future where taxes could be higher. And I like the idea of maxing out the HSA and then, if possible, not spending the HSA as you go. Rather, create a great big bucket of tax-free money for future healthcare costs. As we dive into taxes, remember, taxes are like fingerprints. Each person's situation is unique to you. Please understand that this is a hypothetical situation. You're going to want to check with your financial advisor or CPA for the specifics on how taxes will affect your situation. This is a hypothetical, and taxes are complicated, so please don't assume that this is how it's going to work for you. But in this make-believe scenario, I created two very simple tax returns. Let's say we have our hypothetical couple that's 40 years old, and between the two of them, they're making $150,000 per year of income. We're going to assume that they take the standard deduction, they don't itemize. So the total federal tax, assuming they have no HSA, is $16,682. This puts them in the 22% marginal bracket with an effective tax rate of 13.8%. If we kept everything the same but added the HSA contribution of $8,300 in 2024, their total federal tax would be $14,856 for a tax savings of $1,826. So in this hypothetical example, not only did this couple pay $3,000 less in insurance premiums as a result of having the high deductible health insurance plan, but they also paid $1,826 less in taxes as a result of contributing $8,300 to their HSA. So the annual savings between the insurance and the taxes is $4,826 per year. So now let's look at how much money they could have in the future. Now let's say this 40-year-old couple plans to retire at age 62. If we assume they save $8,300 in their HSA per year for 22 years and never increase the savings with inflation adjustments or catch-up contributions, and let's say they invest that $8,300 per year from age 40 to 62, and we assume the investment account grows at 5% per year, in 22 years, they would have nearly $344,000 available in their HSA that can be used tax-free to pay for future medical costs. If the HSA grows at 7% per year, they would have approximately $443,000. If the cost of medical care today for a retired couple is $300,000 over a couple's retirement, you figure in 20 years they're likely going to double and they're going to need about $600,000. And if you had made the $8,300 contribution every year for the next 22 years and earned 5% investment returns each year, you would have $300,000 to cover the expenses. And hopefully not all the medical expenses are going to occur in the first year of retirement. You now have a $300,000 account that will continue to work and grow and be there for you to cover most of your medical expenses in retirement. The key is that you have to get started. The next area is catch-up contributions. Most people know that starting at age 50, you can do catch-up contributions to your 401k and your IRA. Well, our lawmakers like to keep us on our toes, and so they decided to make catch-up contributions for the HSA start at age 55. If you and your spouse are age 55 and you both have a qualified HDHP coverage in 2024, you can contribute $8,300 to an HSA plus an additional $1,000 per person. And a lot of people miss the extra catch-up contribution. I see a lot of tax returns, people age 55 plus, who are both covered under a qualified high-deductible health plan and have an HSA account, and they think they're making the max contributions because they do the $8,300 plus the extra $1,000 for a total of $9,300, because I can see the tax return. The couple can actually make a total contribution of $10,300 because they get $1,000 per person of catch-up contributions. But for this to work, the spouse needs to have their own HSA account to make the catch-up contributions. There's no such thing as a joint HSA. If you only have one HSA, then it would be $8,300 as the family max plus $1,000 for the person who owns the HSA. But if your spouse has their own HSA, then you can contribute an extra $1,000, making the total contribution for those where both spouses are covered at age 55 to $10,300 per year in 2024. There are several nuances you need to be aware of. If your employer contributes to your account, it reduces the amount of the contribution you can make. So if you're 40 years old, the max contribution is $8,300 in 2024. But if your employer contributes $1,000 on your behalf, then the most that you could contribute would be $7,300. And you can have more than one HSA, but the maximum contribution is limited to the annual max. The next thing we want to look at is coordinating HSAs among couples. Let's say both couples have self-only. So if a husband and wife each have a self-only HSA account, they're limited to the annual max of $4,150 per person. So if the wife maxes out her HSA for, say, $4,150 per year, the husband would need to max out his HSA for $4,150. But let's say the husband decides to go out and buy a boat and does not want to max out his health savings account. Instead, he contributes $0. Unfortunately, $4,150 is the most that can be contributed by the wife. She can't make up the extra contribution for her husband when each person has self-only coverage. Now, when one person has family high deductible health plan and the other person has self-only. So in this scenario, where the wife is covered under a family plan and the husband is covered under the self-only plan, if the family max is $8,300, they could each contribute $4,150, just like in the last scenario. But like before, let's say the husband goes out and buys that boat and contributes nothing to his HSA. Well, because the wife has a family plan, she's not limited to only contributing the $4,150. She can actually make up for the lack of contribution her husband did not make, and she can contribute the full $8,300 because she has a family plan. Or they could mix and match. Let's say that the husband contributes $1,000 to his HSA, then his wife would contribute an additional $7,300 to the family plan to get them to the max of $8,300. If this all seems confusing, visit soundretirementplanning.com and click on episode number 430. I'll have articles, links, and resources for your additional reading pleasure. Okay, the next thing that we need to talk about is investment growth. There's no guarantee that your money is going to grow inside an HSA. And some HSA accounts work like a traditional savings account at the bank, and they pay very little interest. Many HSA accounts offer investments where you can buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. And it's possible to access your money for non-medical purposes. So if you access your HSA and use the money for non-qualified, non-medical distributions, then you get hit with a 20% penalty if it's before age 65, and the distribution counts as ordinary income. If you become disabled or are age 65, you can access your HSA without the 20% penalty, but it still gets taxed as ordinary income. Just like if you're taking money out of a traditional IRA. You lose the tax-free benefit, but you can still access the funds for non-medical reasons. It's almost like a traditional IRA, but you don't have to take the required minimum distribution. Another question people have is, what can you spend your HSA account on tax-free? Qualified medical expenses are those expenses that would generally qualify for the medical and dental expense deduction. And you can find out more about these via the IRS publication. After 2019, over-the-counter medication, prescribed or not, is considered a covered expense. Medical expenses incurred before you establish your HSA aren't qualified medical expenses. And this is an important reason to get the HSA established as soon as possible. You might be surprised at what qualifies for medical expenses. Certain improvements made to accommodate a home to your disabled condition or that of your spouse or your dependents who live with you don't usually increase the value of your home, and the cost can be included as a full medical expense. These improvements include, but aren't limited to, the following items: constructing an entrance or exit ramps for your home, widening doorways at entrances or exits to your home, widening or otherwise modifying hallways or interior doorways, installing railings, support bars, and other modifications to bathrooms, lowering or modifying kitchen cabinets and equipment, modifying or moving electrical outlets and fixtures, installing porch lifts and other forms of lifts. but elevators generally add to the value of the house. Modifying fire alarms, smoke detectors, and other warning systems, modifying stairways, adding handrails and grab bars, modifying hardware on doors, modifying areas in front of the entrance and exit doorways, grading the ground to provide access to the residence. But you're going to want to be careful about coordinating your tax return and your HSA spending. You can't deduct qualified medical expenses as an itemized deduction on Schedule A that are equal to the tax-free distribution from your HSA, so there's no double dipping. And you cannot treat insurance premiums as qualified medical expenses unless the premiums are for any of the following. And these are the areas that you can use HSA accounts for insurance premiums. Number one, long-term care insurance, which is subject to limits based on age. Number two is health care continuation coverage, such as COBRA. Number three is health care coverage while receiving unemployment benefits. And number four is Medicare Part A, B, and D premiums or Medicare Advantage plans, but not Medicare supplemental plans known as Medigap coverage. One of the nice things about HSAs is that there are no income limitations on who can have these accounts. If you're considered to have high income, you get phased out of a lot of different tax deductions and can no longer make Roth IRA contributions. But that's not the case with HSAs. This is one of the few special tax deductions that you don't lose due to having a high income. Who's the best HSA provider? Morningstar did an analysis of HSA providers in 2023, and I'll include a link to the article in the show notes, but here's a quick summary of their findings. The top three HSAs as spending accounts were Fidelity, First American Bank, and Health Equity. The top three HSA providers as investment accounts were Fidelity, Health Equity, and Associated Bank. And I'll include a link in the show notes if you want to look at the pros and cons of the various HSA providers. My personal favorite is Fidelity. Fidelity offers a low-cost option with a ton of investment options and a debit card for easy payment of medical expenses. Okay, let's talk about what happens to your HSA when you die. HSAs, while incredible while you're alive, are not very tax-friendly upon death. So this is an account that you want to make sure you spend. Oftentimes, people can rack up a lot of medical expenses their last year of life. And one of the great things about the HSA is that the proceeds can be used to pay these medical expenses up to 12 months after the HSA owner's death. So you want to make sure that you're talking to your family about these HSA accounts. If your spouse is named as the beneficiary of the HSA, they can continue the account as if nothing really changed. If they are under age 65, they can use the money for medical expenses without paying taxes. If your spouse is over age 65, they can spend the money on anything, not just medical expenses. But if you aren't spending it for qualified medical expenses, it will be taxed as income at your then current tax rate. If you name your kids as beneficiaries or any other non-spouse beneficiaries, this triggers a tax hit. All of the HSA becomes taxable in the year of death on the kid's tax return based on the kid's tax situation. You can name your estate as the beneficiary, in which case there's a special rule that says the HSA is included in the HSA owner's final tax return. And this might be a better strategy if your estate is in a lower tax bracket than your kids or other beneficiaries would otherwise be in. If you name a charity as the beneficiary of your HSA, then the tax issues go away. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the strategies around using a health savings account. Number one, accumulated health expenses. Once you get your HSA established, keep all the receipts and try not to spend your HSA account. Keep all receipts for healthcare expenses using a tool like Evernote or a Google Drive, and create a table or a spreadsheet to track expenses. Then take pictures of the receipts to include with the spreadsheet. Let's say you do this from age 40 to 62 and you have an HSA that entire time. So you're tracking your healthcare expenses, but you're not actually using the HSA as you go. And then you retire at age 62. And then let's assume that over the past 22 years, you had $66,000 of healthcare costs. You never itemized these costs on your tax return. You never used your HSA to pay any of these expenses. These are just your accumulated costs from over the years. But during that time, you did not spend from your HSA, so those costs have never been reimbursed. And you decide to retire at age 62. And then let's say your budget the first year of retirement requires $66,000, just for simplicity. The year of retirement, you could reimburse yourself for all 22 years of medical expenses incurred and have $66,000 of tax-free income. Because all of this income is tax-free, it would open the door for you to consider doing something like a Roth conversion. Or maybe instead of taking all of the tax-free reimbursement income in 1 year, you spread the $66,000 over a couple of years to help keep your income low to allow for Roth conversions, or to help keep your income low so that you qualify for the Affordable Care Act credits, because HSA reimbursements do not count towards your modified adjusted gross income, which means you may qualify for higher ACA subsidies to help cover health insurance costs until you turn age 65 and Medicare begins. It's very important to have impeccable record keeping for this strategy to survive an audit. Let's say you plan to retire at 63 and a half and you're eligible for COBRA for 18 months. Remember, HSAs generally cannot be used to pay for private insurance once you retire, but the funds could be used tax-free to pay for COBRA for those 18 months leading up to age 65. Remember, once you're on Medicare, you can use your HSA to reimburse Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. So even though your Part B premium will likely be automatically deducted from your Social Security, you can reimburse yourself tax-free for the cost of Medicare Part B and Part D. Review your beneficiaries and consider naming your spouse as the primary beneficiary so that they can continue to enjoy the HSA for tax-free healthcare expenses after you pass on. And consider naming your favorite charity as a contingent beneficiary to help reduce taxes once you've both died. The IRS says that anyone can contribute to an HSA. So one idea is for parents to fully fund HSA for adult kids. And this is a triple benefit. Kids get to enjoy the tax deduction. Kids have cash available for medical expenses, and the money grows tax-free for future needs. Helping to fund the HSA might help pay for the costs for when your first grandchild is born, and also help keep your adult kids out of medical debt. The HSA says that once you reach age 65, you can take the money out of the account without the 20% penalty. So one strategy would be to prioritize the HSA contributions to the older spouse so that funds become available without a penalty at age 65 if needed. Consider a qualified HSA funding distribution. The IRS gives you a one-time opportunity to transfer funds from your IRA to your HSA without any tax. This is almost like doing an IRA to Roth conversion, except it's tax-free. You're getting money out of your tax-hostile IRA and into an HSA account where the money can come out tax-free. The two best times to consider a qualified HSA funding distribution would be when you're young and you're just getting started. You don't have the extra money to make a contribution to an HSA, but you have money in your traditional IRA. This gives you a longer time period for that money to grow and compound tax-deferred and be used tax-free. The second time to consider doing a one-time transfer would be after you and your spouse are both age 55 or older. This way you can transfer the family maximum plus the extra $1,000 per person catch-up contributions. The distributions from your IRA isn't included in your income, isn't deductible, and reduces the amount that can be contributed to your HSA. It's important to understand that a qualified HSA funding distribution needs to be done via direct transfer from custodian to custodian, and it has a testing period. This means that if you don't follow the rules, there's consequences and penalties. In summary, an HSA is one of the best but most overlooked retirement plans available. They're best for people who do not have a lot of healthcare costs, and every year they have the money to make the maximum contribution to the HSA. They have triple tax advantages in that your contributions are tax deductible, the earnings grow tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. You enjoy lower health insurance expenses compared to a low-deductible plan. You get tax deductions for contributions, tax-free growth, and easy access to the money before age 59 and a half. You can have investment opportunities for long-term growth and a plan to cover health-related expenses in retirement. And unlike a traditional IRA, there are no required minimum distributions. And then after age 65, you can access the money for non-medical expenses without the 20% penalty. You can delay reimbursements and allow your HSA to grow tax-free and then take a tax-free lump sum in the future. And once you turn age 65 and start Medicare, you can use your HSA to reimburse the costs of Medicare Part B and Part D or pay for Medicare Advantage plan premiums. If you don't currently have an HSA, I highly recommend you visit episode number 430 to start to review all of the resources and the links that I've made available. The HSA is a powerful tool that can provide significant benefits for retirement planning and healthcare expenses. However, it's important to remember that the rules and regulations surrounding HSAs can be complex and require careful consideration.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Retirement Radio. For articles, links, and resources from today's show, visit soundretirementplanning.com. If you enjoy the podcast, share it with a friend and give us a 5-star review. Ready to kickstart your retirement planning? Head over to retirementbudgetcalculator.com. Need assistance with investment management? Explore our services at parker-financial.net. Information and opinions expressed here are believed to be accurate and complete, for general information only, and should not be construed as specific tax, legal, or financial advice for any individual, and does not constitute a solicitation for any securities or insurance products. Please consult with your financial professional before taking action on anything discussed in this program. Parker Financial, its representatives, or its affiliates have no liability for investment decisions or other actions taken or made by you based on the information provided in this program. All insurance-related discussions are subject to the claims-paying ability of the company. Investing involves risk. Jason Parker is the president of Parker Financial, LLC, an independent, fee-based wealth management firm located at 9230 Bayshore Drive Northwest, Suite 201, Silverdale, Washington. For additional information, call 360-337-2701 or visit us online at soundretirementplanning.com.